Okay, good afternoon, folks. Today I'm going to be discussing the pathways of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. This is for my California Baptist University Kinesiology 516 Advanced Exercise Physiology class. To begin with, first off, let's discuss where do we get ATP from, the energy that fuels our body. Well, it comes from glucose, which comes from proteins, carbohydrates, or fats. So we have all these different forms of macronutrients. However, ATP is very limited in supply and it has to resynthesize continuously. Um, our body only has about 40% of potential energy that is transferred from ATP and is only available in about 3 ounces, which is roughly 2 to 6 seconds, as we've found out. Now, we do store energy. We store it in fat and we store it in glycogen. So in your muscle glycogen and liver glycogen, we store that energy in the ATP, which is what our cells need body um, for the body to run. Basically, all of our cells need adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, in order to run. Now, we can provide ATP through anaerobic sources with phosphocreatine, which is the PCR, for a quick energy production. And that can actually get us up to about 10 seconds worth of energy. It combines with, well, let's just go into talking about it. Sorry, my slideshow is kind of presenting itself here. So the first thing we have is a glucose molecule breakdown. And now, as you can see here, we find our glucose mostly in our starches, pastas, breads, rice, vegetables. We have high glycemic index, moderate glycemic index, or low glycemic index foods. High would be Pop-Tarts, chips, white breads. Moderate or more the whole wheat, or breads or pastas, brown rice, stuff like that. Then we also have low, which is the milk, the egg noodles, beans, hummus, apples, stuff like that. Now, a simple way to check your glucose levels is through a blood glucose test, which is done through a glucometer, which anybody can go buy one of those. And normally for a human, it's 80 to 120 milligrams per deciliter of energy, or I'm sorry, 80 to 100 milligrams of per deciliter of glucose in your system. That's for a normal person. Now you have diabetics, which aren't able to produce insulin, which helps control that, but that's a whole different subject that we're going to talk about. Now, with this glucose molecule breakdown, as you see here, we have nicotine amide adenine dinucleotide, or NAD, which then combines with hydrogen, which gives us NADH. Or we have flavin adenine dinucleotide, which also combines with hydrogen. NADH is a coenzyme, where FADH is a redox cofactor. It's produced at the same time during the Krebs cycle, as you can see here. Now, as you can see in glucose, it breaks down through glycolysis, which is where we take that glucose molecule and we break it down into glycogen and then pyruvate, and then with the acetyl coenzyme A, we then produce up to 36 ATP throughout this entire process. The Krebs, or the citric acid cycle, also helps produce us. And that whole cycle there, this all occurs, I'll show you later, but this all occurs in our mitochondria, which is just a very, very small part of the cell. Now, what this does for us as human beings is it provides us with the energy that we need in order to move. And I'm not talking, we got to do hard physical, strenuous activity, but it also provides the energy that we need just to breathe, to move our head from side to side, to blink, talk, smile, frown, whatever you guys want to do. Anyway, so with this kind of activity, we're talking our body is constantly resynthesizing the ATP, storing it in glycogen, storing it in fat. And sorry, my nose kind of itches right now. I've been getting over some allergies. And then through this process, as you can see with the glucose molecule, we only get about 36 ATP. Now, the next that I'm going to talk about is the fat or palmitate, or palmitic acid. And with that one, we get a lot more energy. So fat molecules are harder to break down. They're a harder macronutrient to break down. However, they do produce the most amount of energy that we can get. There are good fats and there are bad fats, as you guys have heard. The good fats that we have, you have saturated, you have unsaturated, polyunsaturated. What that means basically is a saturated fat has no double carbon bonds, whereas mono and poly mono has only one, poly has multiple. Then we can break it down even further, along with our fatty acid chains, where I will discuss those here in just a minute. But we can break it down further where you have cis fats or you have trans fats. Now, cis fats are naturally occurring fats, such as bacon or avocados or butter. And then you have your trans fats, which are the non-naturally occurring. The cis fats have the hydrogen atom on the same side as the double carbon bond. The trans fats, which are in your potato chips, your margarines, anything that is not naturally occurring or is a processed food, these have the trans fat, or they have the hydrogen atom on the opposite side of the double carbon bond. And now we have different chain lengths of fatty acids. We have short chain lengths, which are less than 6 carbons. We have medium chain lengths, which are 6 to 12 carbons. And we have long chain lengths, which are 14 or greater. Now, what that means is that each one of those different kinds of fatty acids allows us to produce more and more energy. What you can see here now is that we have basically the same kind of breakdown when it comes to producing ATP. You, of course, have over here, you have your glucose, and it goes through glycolysis and then into the Krebs cycle, and we get the 36 ATP from there. But then also we have glutamine, and then it goes into coenzyme A, and then we get into the fatty acid synthesis or de novo synthesis, and then it goes into palmitate, which then we get our free fatty acids and our acetyl coenzyme. Now, and this is all occurring again in the fat and the lipids. So what that does for us is that creates actually about 106 ATP of energy from one fat molecule. So if you think about it, you have glucose and you have fat on this side. So glucose is like that, bam, really quick. Like let's put it in kind of like a car sense. If I want to get my car started and it has a carburetor, I spray a little starting fluid into it, bam, it's going to start up really quick. Now I want to keep that car running, I have to get gas into the engine. So what I do is I continuously press the gas as I'm going, and that gives me that extra bit of energy. Now, the big question is, as I've stated before, this occurs in the mitochondria. So where does this occur? Cellular oxidation levels. Here is where you get that mitochondria right here. It's just a little tiny part of the whole cell overall. I mean, this is what an entire cell has. This is, of course, a very young kid drawing of a cell. You have your nucleus, you have your endoplasmic reticulum, you have your Golgi body, the membrane, the ribosomes, the mitochondria, and the chloroplast. So this is more than likely a plant cell than anything else. But it still occurs in plants, just like it occurs in us. This is the mitochondria. This is where it all occurs. This is your engine for your cell. This is where you're going to get that energy. Now, what we do is we have cellular oxidation, which actually occurs in the little inner lining here of the cell. And in that mitochondrial membrane, we take that NADH and that FADH that we've produced in the Krebs cycle and in the glycolysis and in any of our breakdown. And what that does is that combines with oxygen to create water. So we have aerobic ATP resynthesis as well. And now that's the final receptor in the respiratory chain that we get. So it's kind of funny because your body basically produces water in order to function. Now, if we think about that with energy, what we're going to do is that it's kind of like a waterfall effect. We have our high potential energy up here at the top, and as it goes over the crest and down, and it hits into the base of the thing, we lose that energy. We lose that kinetic energy. But along the way, we put a wheel up there. That's where our mitochondria is. And in that wheel, it spins And the faster it spins towards the top, the longer the higher the energy output. And as it goes through those wheels, it loses energy. But at the same time, it helps to produce more and more energy. So the main thing that I want you to get from this is that we take a very, very small amount in our body and we produce this kind of energy. And with that energy, what we do is we end up um, basically uh, being able to run our body. It's a not a complicated process. It's very simple. You know, we take that mitochondria as the engine to our cells, and that gives us the energy to produce. I mean, we can think about it anaerobically when you're doing resistance training. All those different cells are functioning as little engines that are causing us to lift the weight. Or we can think of it aerobically as we're running a marathon and our bodies are starting to get tired and we think about, oh, I get that second wind. Well, that's just our body taking the glycogen stores and producing the glycolysis, which then gives us that extra bit of energy, and we end up finishing the race in a decent amount of time. So with that said, what I want you to get from this is that your cells are constantly working. Your cells are constantly working with the mitochondria to produce energy for us to function on a daily basis. Hopefully you guys have learned something with this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Here's some of the references that I got for my material. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and have a great day.